Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is David Johnson, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Our urban community welcomes all with love, supports learning and spiritual growth, serves our wider community, and works for justice, equity, and inclusion. We're glad you're here this morning. Following the service portion of our broadcast, there will be an announcement of upcoming events. If you'd like to learn more about these events, about our community, or any of our programs, contact us at membercare@firstuu.com. To begin our service, I share these words adapted from a National Alliance on Mental Illness candle lighting service. We light this chalice as a symbol of truth, that God will help us dispel ignorance and misinformation about major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, severe anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. We light this chalice as a symbol of healing for troubled minds and hearts, broken lives and relationships. We light this chalice as a symbol of understanding, that the darkness of stigma, labels, exclusion, and marginalization might be dispelled for the sake of those touched by mental illness. We light this chalice as a symbol of hope for persons and families living with mental illness, for better treatment, for steadier recovery, for greater opportunity to work and serve. We light this chalice as a symbol of thankfulness for compassionate, dedicated caregivers and mental health professionals, for new discoveries in brain research and better medications. We light this chalice as a symbol of faith, faith that can dispel doubt and despair for those who have lost hope and are discouraged. We light this chalice as a symbol of steadfast love, to remind us of the power of universal love, to remind us to share the light of love and service for those living with mental illness.
When Molly Drew Dogs by Deborah Kerbel. Illustrated by Li Zhu. On the night before the first day of school, a pack of stray dogs moved into Molly Akita's head. They were friendly, but a bit wild. They scampered through her thoughts and yapped at the door to her dreams. When they got restless, they scratched at her brain, begging to be let out. So, Molly started drawing them. Everywhere. When Molly drew dogs, her Her heart sat up and smiled. Not everyone felt the same way. Molly's new teacher, Miss Shepherd, must have been allergic to dogs. It's time to get serious, Molly. Focus on your work. Drawing is only for art class. But Molly's dogs were stubborn. They needed to run free. A letter was sent home to Grandma. The next evening after work, Grandma brought Molly to see a tutor. Mr. Russell teaches children how to concentrate on their schoolwork, she said. Be a good girl and pay attention. Molly tried. She really did, but her dogs just wouldn't sit still. Halfway through the lesson, Mr. Russell lost his patience. No dogs allowed. Molly turned tail and ran. Her dogs were causing so much trouble, but she couldn't erase them, even if she wanted to. She ran and ran until a pattering of raindrops brought her to a stop. Wiping her eyes, she looked around. There was just enough light for her to see that she was lost. As the clouds opened up, she ducked inside a garden shed, the closest shelter she could find. It was scary out in the world, all by herself. Molly pulled out her chalk. She gave the littlest dog a coat because he would be chilly on a night like this. Then she drew coats for the rest in case they were cold too. She drew bowls of food because they were probably very hungry. Her stomach whined in sympathy. Surrounded by a pack of friendly faces, Molly fell asleep. Molly startled awake to the sound of barking and growling outside the shed. It was too dark to see anything. She was too afraid to move. Suddenly, there was an ear-splitting howl. And then, silence. Molly curled up into a ball in the far corner of the shed and wished for morning. In the fuzzy light of dawn, a face appeared at the door. Molly, we've been looking everywhere for you. I heard barking and howling. What happened? There was a robber in the neighborhood last night, but a pack of dogs scared him off. A pack of dogs wearing coats. Molly turned toward her drawings from the night before. Miss Shepherd stared at the dogs for a long time. Then she stared at Molly for even longer. Finally, she held out her hand. Let's get you home. As it turned out, Miss Shepherd wasn't allergic to dogs after all. Sometimes in life, we can feel scared or sad or lonely or afraid. Sometimes these feelings come on for no reason, and sometimes they stay much longer than we'd like them to. I wonder, what do we do? What do you do when this happens? To you or to someone you love?
This is the time in our service when we honor the joys and sorrows of our community and the things that have happened to us in our lives and in the world since we were last together. This week is the anniversary of the founding of the Unitarian Universalist Association. In May of 1961, the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America finalized the consolidation of the two denominations to create the UUA as we know it today. We are grateful for that vote and for the founding of our faith. This week, we have so much news in our congregation. There are a few things I want to share with you. First, a big thank you from Rosie Park on behalf of the Jeanette Rankin Foundation. First Church generously contributed $1,000 to the Jeanette Rankin Foundation as part of its annual giving program. And as a result, a scholarship was given to a young woman named LaTanya. Rosie says, "You can all feel good about supporting LaTanya and other deserving women. This gift is a perfect model of the generosity of time, treasure, and talent provided by supporters, making this a better world for all." Also, Jane Kay and her son Joshua Steele and daughter-in-law Kate are proud to announce the birth of their first grandchild and child, Emmett, who arrived 2 months early and weighed in at 3 pounds. Joshua is both ecstatic at becoming a dad and concerned for the well-being of his wife and son. You may recall that we shared healing thoughts and prayers for Kate as she has been treated with preeclampsia. Also this month, Jane's daughter Stephanie successfully defended her master's in biology thesis on the nesting habits of pollinating bees and wasps. Congratulations to Stephanie. Betsy and Brian McConnell have hit the road. Newly retired, they're on a 5-month trip through the western U.S. Brian emailed me from Pierre, South Dakota a couple of days ago just to let me know that they were on their way to the Badlands. I can't wait to see their pictures when they return in October. And good news from Mary Mark. The feeding tube is out, she's healing well, and the doctor says there's no need for chemo or radiation. She sends big thanks to everyone who sent cards and letters of encouragement. For all of those joys, we drop a stone in our water, that they may be amplified by the power of the water. For those sorrows that are still with us, the ones that may not be named today verbally, but that are still with us, the concerns, the injustice, for all of those, we drop a stone, that our sorrows may be healed by the water. And in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month and the proclamation by President Biden of May 4th as National Day of Prayer, I offer this prayer shared by the National Alliance on Mental Illness and written by Reverend Susan Gregg Schroeder. Loving Creator, we come to you on this National Day of Prayer for mental illness, recovery, and understanding because we know that you are a God of love and compassion. We come as people of all creeds and all nations seeking your presence, comfort, and guidance. We come as consumers, family members, friends, co-workers, and mental health professionals. We come this day because we believe that you, Divine One, love each one of us just as we are, and you walk with us on our individual journeys through life. You see the ignorance and injustice that divides and separates persons struggling with mental illness, and you weep with us. Give us courage to face our challenges and open us today to the many ways you are already working in our midst. Help us to identify mental illness as the disease it is, that we might have courage and wisdom in the face of ignorance and stigma. Inspire us as we seek to overcome fear, acquire knowledge, and advocate for compassionate and enlightened treatment and services. Lead us as we open our hearts and homes, our communities and job opportunities, our houses of worship and communities of faith. Enable us to find ways to be inclusive of persons living with mental illness in our everyday lives. Be with doctors, therapists, researchers, social workers, and all those in the helping professions as they seek to overcome ignorance and injustice with compassion and care. Sometimes, Divine Spirit, we feel discouraged and hopeless in the face of so many challenges. Help us to see ourselves as you see us, persons of value and worth, persons of creativity and potential. May we come to understand the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit in bringing about health and wholeness. And may we go forward into our communities with a renewed sense of vision, hope, and possibility for the future. Amen. For those we have named, for those whose names we do not know, and for those names who are carefully guarded in our hearts, we drop one final stone in our water today as I invite you to join me in a moment of silent meditation, reflection, or prayer as we enjoy this lovely image sent by Dick and Linda Miltner in honor of their wedding anniversary.
Each month, we designate one of our Sunday plate collections to benefit a special cause or local social service organization. This month, our donations will go to support our programs at South Avondale Elementary School. We've been involved with South Avondale for 11 years. We started with a tutoring program for kindergartners, helping them to understand the importance of reading, the joy and the wonder of reading, and to leave kindergarten actually reading themselves. We've been quite successful with that, and through the relationships the tutors formed with their students, we have grown too. We also started an endeavor that supported reading for all students, preschool through 6th grade. That is our Love My Books free bookstore, where students get to choose books from lots of donated books, take them home, and add them to their own libraries. Again, we have learned from this endeavor. We have learned to look for books that children can relate to, not the ones we relate to. Our work with South Avondale Elementary has been incredibly fulfilling for all those who have participated. Working together with the students, teachers, school administration, and parents, we've helped give these youth the gift of literacy. And there is still so much to be done, and we need your help to do it. We are collecting funds for our work at South Avondale Elementary through the month of May. You may donate by way of text by sending the message GIVE to 513-717-7373. If you prefer to write a check, please make it payable to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati with South Avondale on the memo line and mail it to 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. You may also make your donation online at firstuu.com or through our Breeze member system at any time. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
Since 1949, May has been Mental Health Awareness Month in the United States. Each year's observance now has a specific theme. Past themes have included pathways to wellness, healing trauma's invisible wounds, tools to thrive, and get connected. This year's theme is Break the Stigma. Today's service honors the stories and experiences of those whose lives have been touched by mental illness. I could share those with you, but it wouldn't be right. It's not my story to tell. So after a brief introductory video on the stigma of mental health, you're going to hear 3 very personal stories on this important subject.
What are the first words that come to mind when you think of a person with cancer? You may have thought some things like brave, sick, strong, warrior. What are the first words that come to mind when you think of a person with a mental? Hear people say things like weak, sad, violent, unstable, crazy, even looking for attention. This is stigma in action. First, let's define stigma. According to Merriam-Webster, stigma is a mark of shame or discredit. The Cambridge Dictionary defines stigma as a strong feeling of disapproval that most people in a society have about something, especially when that disapproval is unfair. Historically, the stigma associated with mental illness caused mentally ill people to be institutionalized, thrown in jail, or even killed. People did not understand mental illness, so they were afraid of it. While these atrocities have greatly diminished in our world today, stigma is still alive and well in our societies. Here is how we may see stigma today. Many people attribute mental illness as a weakness or character flaw, but the reality is that mental illness is a disease of the brain. People with depression are sick, just like people with cancer. Like cancer patients, people with mental illness are strong and brave because they battle their illness every day, oftentimes alone. But many people refer to them as crazy or unstable. Finally, many people say those with mental illness just want attention, which is untrue, invalidating, and hurtful. Stigma is harmful because it prevents us from opening up to others about our struggles and from seeking treatment. The negative effects of stigma are very strong. The average delay between the onset of symptoms and the start of treatment is 8 to 11 years. We would never wait that long if we had a broken bone or trouble breathing. Lack of mental health knowledge and lack of access to care also prevent us from getting treatment, but stigma plays a large role as well. So what can we do about it? Thankfully, things are improving. Here are some other steps that you can take to be a mental health ally. Be educated on and literate in mental health. This is the best way to combat stigma. Use the right language. Avoid saying things that perpetuate stigma, like, "I'm so bipolar right now," or "You're so OCD about cleaning," or "They're just acting crazy so that they can get attention." Be open-minded. Listen to people who have experienced mental illness, how they have been stigmatized, and how it has affected their lives. Speak up and correct others who do stigmatize. And finally, create a safe and supportive environment for those living with mental illness. We hope you found this information helpful. We at Mental Health Collaborative are committed to providing education and increasing awareness about all of the interrelated states of mental health. We hope that by doing this, stigma decreases and more people get proper treatment and support for mental illnesses. Learn when to get help, where to get help, and what to expect when they get there.
My name is Reverend Barbara Myers. I am a Unitarian Universalist community minister. My diagnosis is depression. I first had mental health difficulties after the birth of my daughter, with what I now understand is postpartum depression. I became sadder and more deeply disturbed and came to a point where I couldn't sleep. I didn't think I was good for anything, and I became suicidal. At that point, my husband took me to the local hospital where I was admitted to the psychiatric ward. I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks before I became more stable and I was able to sleep and I was able to resume my normal life. So up to this point in my life, my career had been a computer software engineer, and I had worked there for nearly 20 years. I was deeply unhappy about having had this experience, and at first I didn't want anybody to know that it had happened. I thought in some way that I was a damaged human being. It was only after I had come to the realization that I simply did not want to live my life like this anymore that I returned to my doctor and began a intensive effort at psychotherapy to try to understand what was making me so deeply unhappy and what kind of changes did I need to make in my life. I remember even at one of my most deeply depressed times, there was a therapist that I went to and told me that I was going to be like this for the rest of my life. That was really the bottom of it. And the most difficult thing. I started to get better after I had returned to my psychiatrist, wanting to understand what I needed to do in my life in order to make my life more livable and not be so incredibly unhappy. And I was definitely, since I'd been doing this for so many years, I was definitely ready to make a change in my life. My psychiatrist had fairly intensive therapy and gave me assignments to do that were difficult and wouldn't let me duck them. And at one point he asked me, "What do you do for yourself spiritually?" And I said, "Nothing." Because until that time, for many years before that, I had not been to church, even though I had grown up in a Protestant household where we went to church every Sunday. And I was involved in youth groups and so forth, but I had not been doing anything. I remember going to my doctor and telling him at one point, "I don't know where it came from, but I'm happy." And I'll never forget what he told me. What he said was, "It came from you." Pointed at me and said, "It came from you." And it was one of those moments where, you suddenly realize the way you've been looking at things maybe isn't quite what really is the real thing that's going on. Maybe there's something else that's going on. Maybe happiness comes from within, and it's not something that people give you, but it's something that you develop within yourself. And I became, happy and elated, and I thought, I don't need to take my medications anymore. And I just stopped taking them cold turkey. And what happened was that 3 weeks later, I was back in the psychiatric ward. However, this time things were much different. I was psychotic. I had not been psychotic before. I was psychotic, thinking that I had died and that the psychiatric ward was heaven where I was going to be reborn. Now, for a person with logical, scientific mind like me, I know that sounds totally ridiculous, but in fact, in a sense, something had died. My own way of looking at myself had died. My old way of thinking of myself as a failure or as a damaged goods had died, and a new life was being reborn. And after, I think, 3 weeks in the psychiatric ward, I was put back on medications, and I came back to what we call sanity. But I was a changed person, and in fact, I knew that something religious had gone on there, and that I started going to a congregation, Unitarian Universalist congregation, not too far from where I lived, and that was very, very helpful, that community of people, and that thinking about issues that I had ignored or repressed all for those years was very, very healing for me. So my religious faith played a big role in my recovery. I have developed sort of a toolkit of things for me that work to keep me well, and that consists of making sure I get my religious practice, my spirituality, in meditation. I get my medication from my psychiatrist, which I take faithfully. I indulge in creative activities. I'm a weaver. I get enough exercise. And I'm actually running, and even in a few weeks going to run in a half marathon race. You want to take care of your entire being. Going to a mental health professional, many people have found is helpful. Many people find psychiatric medications helpful. Some don't. But getting professional advice, taking care of yourself physically, making sure that you get enough sleep, enough food, enough rest for you to behave. Find something that you think is meaningful and purposeful in your life. And you will thrive when you find that. And it is possible to have a meaningful, purposeful life. And I have lots of hope for you.
Dissociative identity disorder is formally known as multiple personality disorder. I see it as the way I function and the way my identity is a bit more fluid and just works differently than maybe the average person. My name is Jessica Hendricks. I have been diagnosed with, not all of these are accurate, but DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, major depression disorder, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia. The first time I experienced a mental health difficulty in terms of a crisis was around when I was 10 years old. I was very moody. I was crying a lot. I was angry, throwing things, just exhibiting a drastic change in personality. And I told my parents I heard voices, and a nurse overheard our conversation, and she recommended to my parents to take me to the mental hospital, and they diagnosed me as a schizophrenic. Unfortunately, many people, they would dismiss any claims of abuse that I was experiencing, mistreatment, bullying. They would say that it was because I was a schizophrenic who was crying out for attention. Everything that I would say, they would tell me, well, that's just a hallucination. And I just felt so depressed. People would treat me like I was stupid because of the label of being schizophrenic. One of my teachers used that to his advantage, and he raped me for almost 3 years, almost every day. There was a lot of emotional abuse, but the worst part of it was the sexual abuse. I decided to file a report on what happened to me, and it was unfortunately because of that they realized that I was completely misdiagnosed. When things started changing for the better, I went to my fibromyalgia treatment, and just having that the experience of what it's like to feel better physically and mentally, it started to motivate me. And so that was one of the reasons why I decided to go through the court, and to have a support system at that time I only had a couple people I was talking to, but they believed me, and the therapists started believing me in what I was saying, and to finally be told that, you know, I believe in what you tell me, that you went through this, and to finally be validated that I was not a schizophrenic, something that I was constantly telling people over and over again for many years. For the average person, they have one identity. For people with dissociative identity disorder, they have more than one. And it can, depending on the person, some people can have 10, some people can have up to over 100. In terms of statistics, I am at a high risk for suicide, all these different things, and having other people inside myself, within myself, we keep each other in check. And there has been numerous times where they have saved me and I have helped save them. One of the things that can be very overwhelming is you have to share time. I don't experience, very rarely I experience like a full day. I share it with the other people inside of me. With being a trauma survivor and having DID, it is like having all these people, they also have PTSD. And because of all the trauma, it has affected each and every one of us differently. I am looking forward to my medical treatments, actually going to get myself whole again. And I want to go back to school, and I actually want to start school again, but in a positive way. As I'm getting older, there are more issues that I'm coming across, and that just comes from everybody is starting to want different. They want different things in life, and so do I. And it's just all about maintaining like this harmony. It's like having family. They are my family, definitely. And like my best friends, the thing is, we're just all in like one vessel. So it's not like I can leave the room and, leave them behind. They're always with me. When I go out by myself, I'm not really alone. I can actually have a good time myself because, we actually spend time with each other. We actually have this close relationship.
The most difficult part for me as a family member was watching my daughter in so much pain and being helpless. It's like watching your loved one drowning and not being able to go out and help them. And every mother wants to, every family member, every human being wants to save people that are in pain, and I couldn't. It was her pain to go through, and I had to just stand and watch. I started noticing that my daughter was having trouble when she was like 2 weeks old, and she was a little more anxious than other babies. She was very particular about who would hold her, and she'd cry a lot when a stranger touched her, and that's not really usual with babies that are 2 weeks old, but she was like that. We just sort of thought that was her personality. We thought when she was little that she was naturally shy. So we treated her that way, and And she was also very much of a perfectionist, and I realized that she was more of a perfectionist than most children are. So we tried to help her through that and make her feel at ease. Then when she got to be a teenager, she had a full psychotic break. And I was terrified, confused. I honestly did not know what was going on. It was like a nightmare. It was a horrible experience for a mother to watch a daughter change so quickly. When my daughter had her first psychotic break, we did what I did for my other family member. We visited her actually every day. We learned everything we could about her illness. We went to a support group at Stanford for family members of people with schizophrenia. I went to a NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, family-to-family class, and I learned how to be a supportive family member and how to take care of myself. I still can't help but believe I could do more. I want to do more. I want the pain to be gone. I want her to be healed. It's very hard for me to come to the realization that it's her illness and I cannot walk in her shoes. I've noticed that when my daughter's not feeling well, people don't talk to me about it. It's like she becomes invisible to others. So it's like she's in the hospital. I have some friends who will call and say, "How is she doing? Is she doing better? Can we do anything? Can we bring you meals? Can we help you out?" And we've also had some people that we know that just will not talk about my daughter. You know, even at work, there were other teachers on my staff that would just not say anything about it. Like it was like they were afraid that if they said something bad would happen, like she had cancer and they get it or something. Fortunately, now there's so much more knowledge about mental illness that where I'm working, people ask me, "Is your daughter doing better?" when I come to work every day. And I think, okay, that's a change. It's not the stigma that I had before. A lot of families in the kind of a situation that we've experienced in our family get torn apart. There's a much higher incidence of divorce when you have special needs children, like we did. And I'm going to say there were some really rocky times in our marriage because we had to get it together if we were going to support our daughter. I think it's very important when people have family members, loved ones, who have mental illness, that they take as much care of those loved ones that do not have mental illness as they do the ones that have the mental illness. Nobody can tell how much another person is suffering because of a diagnosis. So I think families need to be educated. They need training. They need to be listened to so that people can recover. You know, so I've learned how to be a support group leader. I am a trainer for family-to-family classes. Family members come to my classes and learn about illness. I love to teach those classes and to watch family members learn that they're not at fault. I'm a more self-assured parent now than I was when my daughter first came down with her illness. I was so afraid that I'd do something wrong when she first became ill. But now I have a lot more confidence, and I know that I've done a lot of things right, thanks to so many people in our church, in our support group, in the NAMI groups, in the Mental Health Association, in all those groups, so many people have really encouraged me and just are constantly telling me I'm doing a good job and what I'm doing right. And I'm beginning to believe it myself.
Those were immensely powerful stories, and I extend my gratitude to Reverend Barbara, to Jessica, and to Peggy for their generosity and courage in sharing their experiences at a time when, unfortunately, there is still a great deal of stigma around mental illness. Even in 2021, when scientists were able to create not one, but 3 effective vaccines to fight the coronavirus in a matter of months, at a time when we're able to perform joint replacements and other complicated surgeries on an outpatient basis with about as much fuss as we get the oil changed in our car, living with and having mental illness is still stigmatized in our society. And it's not right. It's not fair. There's a popular saying in Unitarian Universalist circles, often attributed to Francis David, one of the original Unitarian ministers in Transylvania and outspoken proponent of anti-Trinitarianism during the Protestant Reformation. It goes like this: we need not all think alike to love alike. It's a great sentiment. It's a rallying cry for religious tolerance. We use it to justify our differing opinions on the existence and nature of God and the meaning of life. It's how we allow ourselves to come together in community as agnostics, atheists, seekers, etc. As I say, it's a nice sentiment, but Francis David didn't say it. Research indicates that it was spoken by Anglican clergyman John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, who, according to writer Peter Hughes, asked in a sermon on Catholic spirit, "Though we cannot think alike, may we not love alike?" It's a very good question. In a community where we welcome and respect all, where we honor each other as we're on our individual spiritual paths, we need not all think alike to love alike. There is room for all of us, agnostics, atheists, seekers, and everyone else, in the warm embrace of Unitarian Universalism. If there's room for us all, no matter what we think, shouldn't there be room for us all no matter how we think? Just as we welcome the person with diabetes whose body cannot process insulin properly, can we not welcome the person with bipolar disorder whose altered brain structure or operation results in extreme mood swings? Just as we welcome the person with mobility issues or a hearing impairment who may require a walker or a hearing aid, can we not welcome the person with post-traumatic stress disorder or another condition who might need a psychiatric assistance dog, mental health companion, or other aid on a daily basis? Their brain simply functions differently. They are living, breathing, feeling human beings with inherent worth, entitled to be treated with dignity and respect, and capable of giving and receiving love, just as you are, just as I am. just as each of us is. But in our society, they aren't always seen that way. Some folks are afraid of people with mental illness. Others avoid them or wish they would simply remain unseen. Truth is, most of the time, we just don't try to understand their condition and its effects on them. Did you know that people with mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed by police? And when you think of people of color with mental illness, that number is even higher. It's just not right. Our Opening Hearts team at First Church is committed to helping us as individuals and as a community be more welcoming and inclusive of those who have been marginalized because of disability, racism, classism, their sexual orientation or gender identity, or other social, theological, or demographic identities they may claim. This month, we ask you to be aware of the oppression and discrimination faced by those who suffer from mental illness, to be aware of the challenges they face in this society, to educate yourself on how to be a better friend, neighbor, ally, supporter, or advocate of those with mental illness. Reverend Barbara Meyer recently published a book entitled Held, Showing Up for Each Other's Mental Health. In addition to being a community minister at the UU congregation in Fremont, California, she is president of the UU Mental Health Network, an organization that promotes inclusion of people affected by mental health issues in the life and work of our congregations and in our society at large. I've invited Reverend Barbara to speak to us next year in greater detail about how we can be more welcoming to those with mental illness, and perhaps bring the Caring Congregation Program workshop that she's created to First Church next fall. In the meantime, I invite you to visit uumentalhealth.org and view the educational materials and listings of relevant books, documents, websites, movies, and other resources about mental health and religion. As we prepare to end our service, I want to remind you again of the words of Reverend Susan Gregg Schroeder. May we see ourselves as the Holy Spirit sees us, persons of value and worth, persons of creativity and potential. May we come to understand the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit in bringing about health and wholeness. May we go forward into our communities with a renewed sense of vision, hope, and possibility for the future. Let us remember that we are more than the ways our brains process information, so much more than our bodily or mental illnesses. We are capable of giving and worthy of receiving love. Remember, we need not all think alike to love alike. We end our service by extinguishing our chalice with the words that appear on your screen. Together we say, "We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again." Go in peace. If you are thinking of hurting yourself or are with someone who is threatening to hurt themselves or others, please call 911 or go to the nearest hospital emergency room. We're also sharing with you phone numbers for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and the National Association of Mental Illness Helpline. if you are in need of a warm line of trained volunteers to offer sympathy and support, please call 211 or visit www.211.info. For more information on the UU Mental Health Network or information on Reverend Barbara Myers, please visit mpuuc.org, the Mission Peak UU Congregation.org. Our congregational meeting will be held next Sunday at 11:15 a.m. Remember that registration is required in order to participate. Instructions on how to register were mailed to all active members. A reminder will be sent today. So if you have not already registered and you would like to participate in the meeting, please do. The information on how to access the meeting by Zoom will be sent to all who registered on Tuesday. Our nominations committee will be hosting a Meet the Candidates forum immediately following this service. The candidates for the Board of Trustees are Amy Bottomley, Barbara Dickerson, and Kim Clokey. If you do not have the Zoom information for this meeting and would like to attend, please send a quick email to member-care@firstuu.com. Our last session on widening the circle of concern, the report of the UUA Commission on Institutional Change, will happen this Wednesday, May 19th, from 7 to 9 p.m. on Zoom. We will be examining restoration and accountability. Finally, our Lifespan Faith Development Program is seeking volunteers to pre-record stories for our Sunday service over the summer or during the church year. You can read a book, tell a story with puppets, or speak from your heart. If you're interested in helping with this project, please sign up at the link provided in the email that was sent from Meredith this past week. We'll send another reminder this coming week.